And welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King. I am joined here on this Sunday evening by our Jason Caldwell as an eventful weekend at Auburn gets wrapped up. And we are now just a couple days away, Jason, from being a week away from football spring practice. So that is something that is getting very close in the rear view that we'll be talking about very soon. But until then, Auburn basketball, of course, fell over the weekend at home to Kentucky, and we've got some Auburn baseball to talk about as well. But Jason, we'll start with basketball. We'll get to that home loss to Kentucky. That's obviously a big deal. But Saturday night going into Sunday morning, it felt like I hesitate to be dramatic and say the season was hanging in the balance. But when your second best player, Jaylin Williams, has an injury like that, and Auburn has seen this movie before a couple times. And actually, Jason, it's kind of freaky. 6 years ago to the day was when Anthony McLemore broke his leg. We were looking that up, and that kind of freaked us out. But Bruce Pearl said after the game, it seemed like a pretty serious knee injury. He said he didn't just bang his knee. An MRI on Sunday for Jaylin Williams. And if you haven't seen the news, it is positive relative to what could have happened here. Auburn's confirmation is that it will not be a season-ending knee injury, and all indications are that he could return maybe even before the end of the regular season. So all of a sudden, it's a perfect time for a bye week for them.
Yeah.
You really couldn't have asked for a better time for Jaylin Williams to get healthy. But Jason, just a massive sigh of relief for this team, because again, we've seen Auburn overcome injuries. I mean, they hung on and won an SC championship without McLemore. They won an Elite Eight game without Chimo Kiki. But it just felt like, especially after a crushing loss like that, that had the potential to be a very bad day for Auburn basketball this season. And now it turns out to, hey, you're not going to have one of your best players for a little while, but he can still come back and help you in the tournament. It's just I think a huge sigh of relief for this team, this coaching staff, and these fans.
Yeah, what this next week gives you now is an opportunity to mess with some things, to see what some options are to get you through until Jaylin Williams gets back. That gives you a week to do that. The first thing is you have a couple of days to rest and to get your legs back under you a little bit as a team. I think it's been a grind, and I think almost every team has already had that bye, and Auburn is probably one of the latest ones. And it showed up even for a team that's really deep. But I think now you go, okay, how do you get to factor this in? The first thing said is obviously you look at Chaney Johnson. Chris Moore could be an undersized 4. Those are two options that you look at. I think we'll see both of those, kind of depending on what it looks like. To me, another possibility would be to move Janai Broome to the 4 and have Dylan Cardwell and Broome play together a little bit. And Janai's shown that he can play and do some of those things outside. So I think that's a possibility. Then you have Darren Scott, a junior college guy that they signed that's really been more of just a scout teamer for much of this year. Maybe he's the guy that gives you 5 minutes somewhere along the way. And so you've got some options now for this team. Obviously, none of those guys are Jaylin Williams, but this is a team that has some potential and some possibilities. And so, honestly, I mean, Chad Baker-Mazara is not a classic guy, but you could play 5 straight up 5 out and have him playing in some of that role as well. And so that's the thing. This team has options. But getting Jaylin Williams back on the court and healthy for this team somewhere down the line is going to be really important for this team to try to make a run in postseason play. And, obviously, Nathan, it's a team that has shown signs that it can be really good. It's shown signs that it can be really bad. The truth lies somewhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bruce Pearl said it after the game that he thought this was a team preseason that had the potential, that was good, but had the potential to be very good. And now he said they're very good, have the potential to be great. But the potential to be great, they haven't necessarily hit that yet. And look, the Kentucky game, there were so many things that went wrong. But to your point a little bit about the grind of the league, Jason, Bruce actually said after the game that he was not expecting that to happen, but he said he's been wondering how long it would take before they have that kind of performance And it, the reason it was so anomalous was the fact that it was on your home floor. And, the lazy thing to say would be, oh, well, they just shot terribly. They're not going to shoot that bad again. No, there was a lot of things that I think particularly we've seen that ball pressure affect the point guards this season. That was the first thing Bruce Pearl brought up. But this was, Jason, the worst shooting performance in that gym of Bruce Pearl's entire tenure. It is the only time under Bruce Pearl in Neville Arena they have shot under 32% from the floor and under 20% from three in the same game. It was a combination of both. Yes, Kentucky, the Kentucky players said after the game, they said they were at their breaking point of hearing about how bad of a defense they were. They knew they could come in here and kind of have a game plan. Basically, their game plan was ball pressure at half court and triple team Janai Broome.
That's
and
it.
say, you have to go out and make shots. And really, a couple minutes into the game, it was clear Auburn was going to have issues doing that. They haven't had issues doing that all season. They were coming off 101 points. There are issues there. There are some problems they need to fix, but I would personally be surprised, especially on Auburn's home floor, if they shoot that poorly again. It was a combination of what Kentucky was doing, and Auburn just missed a lot of really open shots from three and in the paint.
Yeah, no, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to give Kentucky credit. Auburn missed some open shots, but they missed a lot of those open shots after it started to snowball a little bit. There weren't a bunch of open looks early. I honestly think Auburn was shocked. I was shocked. I wasn't expecting Kentucky's defense to look like that. I watched them play Ole Miss, and they were much better against Ole Miss, but Ole Miss must have missed a bunch of open shots early on. That was a Kentucky team that looked like to me that they finally figured out that, you know what, if we play defense, we can be pretty good. And it's a completely different Kentucky team. The other thing they have is they don't have a bunch of 6'8" guards, but they're pretty long. They've got some length at those guard positions. And I thought, once again, that bothered Auburn. I thought the length on the wing bothered Auburn. And, it wasn't Florida big man length as much. But I thought Jaylin Williams and Janai Broome were both very timid in the lane with a taller shot blocker protecting the rim. There was a lot of hesitation, a lot of ball fakes, a lot of pump fakes. That's not the way they normally play. And so I thought that was a little bit of an impact, but Kentucky showed a blueprint. Can Auburn now make people pay for doing that? Because we saw it all season. Teams, Florida said, no, we're not going to let Janai Broome beat us. Somebody else is going to have to beat us. And then Kentucky said, oh, we're going to one up that. We're going to absolutely make somebody else beat you. And nobody was able to do it. So Denver Jones continues to be a guy that is continuing to come on a little bit. Chad Baker-Mazara, those two guys were really the bright spots of that. Obviously, Broome kind of did his thing, but they got to get, and I'll give the other one too. But Katie Johnson continues to attack the basket and do a good job of doing that. But the wild thing about this one was really for much of the second half, Auburn played without either one of its point guards on the floor. That's the thing that Trey Donaldson has played so well, and it just kind of got taken out of the game by Kentucky. That was unexpected for me. And so how do they kind of figure out not just Jaylin Williams, but now what this backcourt's going to look like is a big part of this moving forward in the next week for this team.
Well, look, Bruce Pearl says things I think we've seen over the years very purposefully when he's trying to motivate his players and when he's assessing parts of the lineup. We've seen it in games where they've struggled this season, that point guard spot. And Bruce Pearl said it after the game. He said we need better guard play. It's simple, and a lot of it comes back to point guard Donaldson and Holloway. And look, Auburn missed a lot of shots in this game, but still, when your point guards combine for 0 assists, never a good thing. They combined to shoot 1 of 8 from the floor. Aiden Holloway continues to just be in just a really bad slump. And there was a missed 3-pointer for him in the first half where he just looked incredibly dejected afterward. And that goes back to what you were talking about, Jason. It was the shock factor. It was the crowd too. I mean, this was a crowd that had been built up for days looking forward to this game. And it wasn't even the lead that Kentucky had. It was just the way the game was going. It was so.
They never got in. Auburn's crowd was never in the game because of what Kentucky did. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, and that bled over to a lot of areas. And look, Auburn played great defense in this game. Kentucky averages 90 a game. Like, you hold them to 70 on your home floor, you should give yourself an opportunity to win.
Were they like 4 threes, something like that? I think it was 4. They made 4 threes, something like
Yeah,
that. I mean,
4 of 13 from 3.
yeah, I mean, you hold a team to basically 20 points under its average. If you'd have told me before the game that Kentucky scores 70 and has 4 threes, and I'm like, hey, this is a comfortable win for Auburn. That wasn't the case, and it's been as wild a swing in the past week and a half for Auburn basketball as I can remember. When you talk about Gainesville to South Carolina at home to Kentucky at home, you can't have a wilder swing of 3 games. And can this team find the happy medium? If they can find the happy medium, there's still a lot of winnable basketball games for these guys. But they're going to have to find some answers now, depending on, especially on how quickly Jaylin Williams can get back and how healthy he is when he gets back.
Well, and kind of a glass half full that somebody on our board was talking about, over the next few games, however long it is, Auburn's going to learn how to play without Jaylin Williams. Then can you, again, this is a very positive way to look at it. You never want the player to be injured at all in the first place. But, then when Jaylin Williams comes back, maybe really close to tournament time or right at tournament time, does he give you a boost to a team that's kind of already learned how to play without him and kind of everybody having to step up in their own individual way? I mean, Auburn's been kind of all over the place. We've mentioned all season that that's just college basketball, but I feel like it has been, spiked up in Auburn's case the past few weeks. They were a 4 seed. The NCAA selection committee had them as a 4 seed, the top 4 seed, the number 13 overall seed in the country. That's really, really good. I saw Joe Lenardi's seed lines last night. He still has them on the 4 line, even after a loss like that. And so the Georgia game, I think, becomes all the more important because are you going to lose at Tennessee? Probably. But that remains your toughest game of the season. You can you've got an entire week to try to figure out how to do this thing without Jaylin Williams. You got an entire week to recover. Maybe if you can go out and steal that one against Georgia. And again, Jason, I go back to this 3-game stretch for Auburn to end the season. You may not have to, and again, this is a very wishful thinking, sort of glass half full situation here. You may not have to rush Jaylin Williams back because against Georgia and Mississippi State, particularly at home, you're going to be expected to beat up on those guys pretty good, even without Jaylin Williams. And so you may have to, don't have to play on that many minutes. You may not even need him in those kinds of games. But the bottom line is this felt like the biggest reason now that Jaylin Williams is going to be healthy down the road. The biggest, hit in the knee from this game is that Auburn's road to an SEC championship seems pretty damaged at this point, especially because Alabama continues to win and Tennessee continues to win too.
Yeah, you're sitting here at 20-6 overall. Got 5 games left? I think is it 5, right? I think if you finish 24-7 in a regular season, you start talking about 24-7 and 13-5. Man, you just go, hey. Tip a cap to somebody and say, great job. That's the thing now. You look at it and you go, hey, if you go still win at Tennessee, great. Take care of business in the other games. That's where this comes down to. And obviously you go to Tennessee and you go, you win at Georgia. Hey, then it's all hands on deck. See what you get, with the Vols in Knoxville. But yeah, I think right now you look at it and go, look, just try to continue to find some answers and start to build a little bit more momentum again. They had that momentum early in SEC play, sharing the basketball, finishing. I think, honestly, I honestly want to see potentially what Dylan Cardwell and Janai Broome would look like together. I think it could be a really interesting dynamic with 2 low posts and playing. Say, okay, you want to double one? We'll just throw a lob to the other one all day long. It changes some things. Maybe it's not as much outside play, but right now for this team, is that a bad? I don't know if that's bad.
It might be a good thing. Yeah,
correct. It may be a good thing. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. But yeah, I think you're looking to go, hey, kind of figure some things out. Go to Athens on Saturday, regroup against a team that's really struggling. Missouri's really struggling, even though they played probably their best basketball yesterday in a loss to Ole Miss. There's some absolutely winnable games for this team down the stretch, even with Jaylin banged up.
Yeah, you feel like again they're still on that 4 line. You feel like, and probably a 5 seed, barring a just complete meltdown against these teams we're talking about at the bottom of the SEC. You feel like they're probably at worst a 5 seed, which is still a really good place to be. Like Jason said, you feel like you're in a spot now where try to handle business the best you can, kind of get to the end of the regular season, because that SEC championship aspirations kind of feel like they're pushed far away now, and try to get Jaylin Williams healthy and then get ready for a run in March. So we'll see. We'll get Bruce Pearl this week on Thursday. Again, it's a great week for them to be off. By the way, Jason, looking here, I think them in South Carolina, as I'm looking at the standings, they are the only 2 teams in the SEC, if I'm reading this correctly. Yeah. There are only 2 teams in the SEC that as of this weekend have played 13 conference games. So them and South Carolina are the last teams to get a bye. It's brutal. It wears on you. You saw it wear on South Carolina.
Yep.
They got destroyed at Auburn, come back home. It wears on you a little bit.
They lose LSU. You know what? In the grand scheme of things, it may work out in Auburn's favor because of the injury to Jaylin Williams that it happens now. Maybe it gives you a little bit where you're missing a game in the middle of the week, and it gives you a chance to regroup. So never a great time for that to happen, but for Auburn with a full week to prepare for Georgia, gives you a lot of time for rehab, a lot of time to again kind of get to the drawing board and see what you can figure out to get prepared to, hey, right now, just what do you got to do to beat Georgia? Do that, then what do you got to do to beat Tennessee? There's never a look ahead anyway. But right now for them, you go like just figure out what you got to do to win the next game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how confident I would have been if they had to play Georgia, say, Tuesday night
or
Wednesday night.
Yes, it would have been really, really difficult to flip that switch and try to get something done without Jaylin Williams right now.
Yeah, and the emotion of losing Jaylin Williams as well, the emotion of losing that Tennessee game. So yeah, it seems like it's coming at a good time here for Auburn. We'll shift over here to Auburn Baseball, Jason, where you were throughout the weekend at Plains and Park. To get a win, to get a series win, a series sweep over Eastern Kentucky. I know there were a bunch of guys that you were really looking forward to seeing. Really good attendance for them all weekend. It was a little bit chillier, I think, than Bruce Pearl had announced when he said, it's going to be gorgeous weather in Auburn this weekend. He might have jinxed it a little bit, but still seems like a good showing for Auburn in their first few games of the season. I know there were some guys, particularly Joseph Gonzalez, that you guys were really looking forward to seeing here early in the season.
Yeah, I think you look in pitching kind of is the story early in the season, and it was Chase Alsop and 2 or 3 guys together in game 1. Those early jitters. Auburn scores some runs. Like Irish goes nuts and goes 4 for 5 and has a big day. Chris Stanfield swinging it good early, so kind of set the table for the weekend on a big first day, and then it became more pitching in games 2 and 3. I think for Butch Thompson and Everett Tiford and those guys, that's exactly what they want it to be. Joseph Gonzalez wasn't sharp particularly, but I know Butch Thompson didn't expect him to be. I've seen him throw twice in the preseason. Arm strength is fine, all those things. He just doesn't quite have the feel back yet, but he battled and did a good job through 5 innings. And they did enough offensively to get the win in game 2. And then today was a masterpiece by Carson Myers, UAB transfer. His dad, Matt Myers, the guy that was on staff with Butch Thompson and Carl Wanamaker, and I've known Matty for over 20 years. And Carson's a guy that has grew up in Auburn, was at UAB the last couple of years, and makes the start and really good. 6 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 8 strikeouts, and then Christian Herberholtz comes in behind him and 3 innings, gives up 1 run, strikes out 6 more. I think they had 14 strikeouts between them, but a really good finish to a strong weekend for Auburn. There were a lot of teams all over the country that had at least one struggle this weekend, and Auburn handled things pretty well. Against, I think, a solid Eastern Kentucky team. So all in all, pretty good weekend for them. I think the strength offensively is just depth. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Auburn basketball in that you look and you go, 10 or 11 guys, and we saw 3 different starting lineups on the infield for 3 days for them, a couple of different DHs, and they got production from up and down the order. And so I think that's the strength of this team as they kind of just, now get moving with a midweek Tuesday night against UAB, and then heading down to Jacksonville this weekend. I'll be going down, to cover those guys down there with a really challenging schedule. Face maybe one of the top right-hand arms in the country on Friday night when you face Iowa. Back end it with Virginia on Sunday. Challenging weekend ahead. It'll be good for this team to kind of see where they are. But all in all, a pretty successful weekend.
Yeah, they've got a few little swings around the state here in non-conference play, which will be good to get them kind of their sea legs on the road, because I'm looking here. They don't leave the state of Alabama, it appears, in non-conference play. They won't do it until they go to Nashville to open SEC play. I'm excited to see. You mentioned going to Jacksonville. I'm excited to see your coverage from that and being there with the team, because that's something that not everybody gets to see, is that close access stuff. And I know Butch Thompson is somebody that really enjoys that aspect of things, and somebody that you've gotten to know really well over the years. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And like you said, should be a good field for them early in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. When you get Iowa, Wichita State, Virginia, pretty challenging games down at the tournament down there. So it should be a lot of fun. Like I said, just to kind of an opportunity for them to almost NCAA tournament feel. That's kind of been now what happens in the world of college baseball, is something that's happened in basketball over the years. The Maui Invitational's kind of always been the one, but you've seen Cancun come in, and then we've seen them, the Myrtle Beach, and where these teams get let's get a little NCAA tournament feel and put you at a neutral site and play. And baseball has done a great job of that in the last probably 5 or 6 years, really, especially where you have a couple of tournaments in the state of Texas. Obviously, Florida and Jacksonville has one. And so you get these kind of round robins where you get a chance to play neutral site. Tennessee is still playing tonight as we speak in Globe Life Park in Arlington. And so it's an opportunity for Auburn, like I said, to get a feel for, hey, travel, stay in a hotel, you're there for 3 days. Even though it's different opponents, it gives you that opportunity to kind of, okay, this is what it's going to be like when you head to Vandy for the SEC opener, the weekend of the SEC tournament in Nashville, all that craziness going on. And so I think should be a good opportunity for these guys.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to checking out the coverage there. There'll be some recruiting this week as well. Still in the dead period for football. We're still waiting for spring practice, of course. Going to have lots of previews over at the site, but you and Christian heading down to some basketball. I believe some of the state championships are getting to their final rounds here, and so there'll be some Auburn targets in there as well. And then we're going to continue to have some coverage from the Under Armour camp in Atlanta, where there was a lot of Auburn targets. So lots of recruiting, both basketball and football, be coming to the site in the next few days.
Absolutely, have a chance. Yeah, Tuesday we'll go to Hanceville and watch Buckhorn. Obviously, I wrote for Monday. On one of the top 26 players in the country, and the Buckhorn Bucks, as you're very familiar with.
Yeah, we like them.
Yeah, you like those guys. One of the top players in the country. We'll get to see him in action on Tuesday, as well as Hoover and Thompson. Now, I think the fourth time those 7A teams will play. Really interesting on both sides there. Hoover, big man. Thompson, 2026 forward / wide receiver / hybrid tight end. So it'll give us an opportunity to see some guys in action this week on the hardwood.